You know, this was supposed to be a video about Hades. I had this idea in mind where I'd talk about the popularity of roguelikes and other games with repetitive gameplay loops that are baked into the story, but how they ended up messing with the pacing of information, especially when we're talking about the progress of a main storyline, since pacing is one of those things a non-linear game doesn't have much control over. Don't get me wrong, I love Hades. The gameplay in Hades is awesome, and serves as a shining example of a roguelike that is balanced right for both hardcore digital sadomasochists that love dying constantly, and casuals that just want a challenge without the non-stop negative reinforcement. Darren Korb has a few really good songs in this soundtrack too. But while Hades has a wonderful cast of voice actors reciting hundreds of lines of dialogue, to me it just didn't have the narrative impact I was looking for. In games like Soma, The Talos Principle, Bioshock Infinite, the story has a deeper emotional and/or philosophical impact. Even Supergiant's previous narrative-focused games had this. I love Transistor, and I was expecting something like that with Hades. But this video is mostly going to be about the Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds is a game by Mobius Digital, where you play a plucky young astronaut of a race of four-eyed, nature-loving aliens. You're out to fly on your first voyage, and you quickly discover that you're stuck in an endless time loop. If any of this sounds interesting, and you haven't played this game yet, seriously, just stop this video and go grab the game on Steam. And if you already have that game sitting in your queue for the last several months, just go install it already. There's a reason why so many people love this game. But Outer Wilds is the kind of game where the less information you know about it, the more you enjoy playing it. It thrives on exploration and curiosity. Hell, knowledge is the primary resource in this game. Look, if you need more of a hook, go watch Errant Signal's spoiler-free Part 1 video about it. I'll include a link in the description below. Just in case I wasn't clear, I'm going to be discussing major spoilers about this game, including the ending. So what's actually left to talk about this year-and-a-half-old game? There's enough material about it to fill an Undertale message board. Well, what about its success as a ludonarrative loop? What exactly is a ludonarrative loop? It's a term I just made up to categorize the flavor of game where a gameplay loop is an integral part of the story, usually a loop involving dying and coming back to life, because that's how almost all gameplay loops restart. In a normal game like, say, Super Mario Bros., you die and start a new life on the same level, or you get a game over screen and restart the game. But your death is not part of the proper story. In a game like Hades, when you die, you crawl back out of the pool of blood in the House of Hades. Hypnos looks up how you died and makes a few comments, Hades mocks you about these repetitive trips to escape, and it's now all part of the narrative. It's the same with the Outer Wilds, even if most of the Hearthians aren't aware of the time loop. You've seen other games that have ludonarrative loops, like Prey Moon Crash, where death is just part of the simulation that you're running. Majora's Mask, where Link is in a similar time loop and has to manually turn back time before the moon destroys his land. Rogue Legacy, where dying in the castle is part of the family tree and the next son or daughter has to start a new journey. The upcoming Deathloop game, which has Deathloop literally in its title. The Sexy Brutale. Assassin's Creed and its desynchronization explanation. Prey. No, not that Prey. The other Prey, where dying was just a minor inconvenience because you got resurrected by Cherokee ancestors or something. But many of these games aren't very narrative driven, so the fact that dying is incorporated into the story is just a neat little plot detail. In games like Hades or the Outer Wilds, it's a very important plot point. In Prey Moon Crash, death is more like a part of a sub-game in the simulation, since it's just a device to try to find more information in the server you're diving into. So I guess that makes it more of a meta ludo narrative something. I'm not going to think about that part too much, but it is amusing that Super Hot somehow falls in a similar category. I thought that the story pacing problem I described with Hades in the beginning had to do with these ludonarrative loops. I now realize I was just playing the wrong game. Dying in Hades rewards you with extra skills, stats, and a slow drip feed of dialogue as you talk to people within the underworld, and relay some of that information back to the people at the House of Hades. You also have some dialogue from the Olympian gods as you collect boons, but that's mostly there for flavor. The story itself is a personal one about perseverance, but ultimately the stakes weren't really high enough and the reward was pretty lukewarm. This is what I mean about being disappointed about a narrative from Supergiant Games. Just look at their previous offerings. In Bastion, you start out in a country where most of its people have turned to stone because of what amounts to a weapon of mass destruction, and you're ultimately tasked to decide the fate of the remaining people. In Transistor, some bizarre thing called the Process is absorbing and corrupting people in parts of the city, so you're left trying to find the Camarada, a group that just tried to assassinate you, who you also suspect is part of the problem, and eventually figure out what to do afterwards. Also, the soundtrack is my favorite from Darren Korb. In Pyre, you read some lore from a book for world building, and then you interact some characters that you don't really care about for some more world building, and then you react to some more lore, talk to some more of your own characters, and occasionally play some sport to make sure we have some sort of gameplay, and travel to the next world building event for some more world building. Also, you eventually have some plot somewhere, but the game expects you to repeat this tournament 6 times before you have some semblance of an ending. I don't really know because I got bored after the 3rd tournament. Some of the songs were cool, I guess. In Hades, you're the Prince of Hades, but you're bored, and you're all,
"My dad is such an asshole. Drunken bastard doesn't even know I exist."
But your Olympus bros want to bail you out, so you throw a tantrum and say, "Fuck this place," and bounce. Later on, you discover a big secret. You have a different mother. I swear I still like Hades. The gameplay deserves all the praise it gets. The personal story is kinda cool, and I can't say I didn't get a little emotional at times. But stakes, man. Stakes. Hades isn't quite the epic in its stakes as it needs to be. At least they learned their lessons from Pyre. Almost too much in a way, as the game gets away from the excessive world building of Pyre, but doesn't have enough meat in the story. In Outer Wilds, the world building is, well, literally exploring worlds. You see all the wonders you hear about instead of reading them in a book. Even the first few seconds of the game is a hint to a mystery that needs exploration. It's a perfect illustration of show don't tell. Sure, there are NPCs and wall scrolls telling you about some of these marvels, but that just encourages you to go see these things for yourself. And this all ties to the ludonarrative. It's your exploration and your discovery. In the beginning, you have a bit of a tutorial, learn about how your rickety spaceship works, a little bit about the alien race and what they have accomplished, some of the tools and dangers you face, and after finally getting your launch codes, you get a narrative hook to drive you forward. But after that, it's your game. You are the fledgling astronaut, and even the characters in the story let you choose where you want to go. They give you a few suggestions, like the nearby moon as a beginner's destination, or perhaps the fisherman's tale of Giant's Deep caught your attention. And sure, I checked out the moon a bit, talked with an old geezer of an astronaut who was just happy to have a visitor, but the next thing I looked at was this weird thing out there on a map that didn't have a name. Just what the hell is this thing? I'm already thinking about what kind of secrets this holds. What is in this alien installation? This must be from the Nomai race that my fellow astronauts are talking about. I go in, find out that it has oxygen for me to breathe, play around with the controls, read something about a black hole, and suddenly warp to the planet's surface. What is this place? What's this thing about arriving a nanosecond before I departed? More ruins to explore with information we haven't quite figured out yet, but it all piques your curiosity. And then I experience what every player of Outer Wilds experiences. A change in music. Something ominous. Is it these meteors that keep pelting the planet? No, I think I see it. The sun is changing. It's far more red than I remember it looking earlier in the game. I don't think I can stop this now. But perhaps this is my overall goal. So I just stare at it. The theme ends, and I see the reality of what I feared. The sheer magnitude of something that is both beautiful and absolutely terrifying. Minutes after I just get started to explore this solar system, its life is snuffed out by the white heat of a supernova. And somehow, I still survive. I loop back to the beginning. I know I'm playing a game, and knew even before the supernova hit that there would still be a game to play afterwards, because it wouldn't be much of a game if it didn't. But after this point, both myself and the character I play are in sync with the knowledge they share. What little ludonarrative dissonance the game had in the beginning disappears. We both know that we're in a time loop. My character even expresses this in dialogue after I wake up and talk to my campmate. I already have the launch codes, so I can immediately jump into my spaceship this time. And so I explore. I discover the other mysteries. And I watch the sun explode. Much further into the game, I discover most of its secrets. I think I have all the pieces available to me to find this mythical eye of the universe. But I'm a little impatient and want to be really sure, so I look up a few details for the ending, very carefully to spoil as little as possible. Yeah, some might call that cheating a bit, but don't judge me. Play the game how you want to play it. So, sure, I took a few liberties and looked up some of the pieces, but I realized that this information wasn't enough. I had to speedrun it to finish it. I'm not great at speedrunning, but I wasn't going to shortcut this part. I wanted to feel how the protagonist felt. How would they solve it? How would they make sure they got it right the first time? By taking advantage of the loop and practicing for the real thing. I ran a few dark bramble runs, practiced going past the anglerfish several times, practiced entering the coordinates, making sure I could do this right the first time, because for our hero, this was really the only shot. I would steal that warp core from the Ash Twin project and there would be no more loops. So I finished preparing for my mission, landed on the Ash Twin, waited for the dust to reveal the gate to the Ash Twin, even restarted a loop because I didn't make the gate at the earliest possible moment. I'm in the Ash Twin project now. Looks like I still have plenty of time. Just need to rush through and open the power source. I launch myself to the core and grab it. This is my interstellar moment.
It's not possible.
No, it's necessary.
And the music changes, because the game realizes the same thing you're thinking. You've just disabled your safety net. It knows. How fitting that this is a remix of the 1-minute warning supernova music. There's no turning back now. Run fast to the ship. Mark the vessel on the ship's log so that you get the marker, because yes, you can do that and avoid having to backtrack to the escape pod. Set coordinates to Dark Bramble. Avoid the sun with the autopilot. Be careful not to smack full speed into the side of the hull like you did that one time. Andrew even wrote a quieter part of this music just for Dark Bramble. Get past all these goddamn anglerfish who are so touchy and unpredictable. Just need to get all the way to the eggs. slowly pulse past the branch or two in my way. Run through the next portal, and this is past the hardest part. You have some time left. It's okay now. Run to the vessel, to the bridge, insert the warp core. Thank the game for giving you gravity on this part. Enter the coordinates. It's a downslope C, a ribbon, and an N. You've practiced this. You're gonna make it. You might even find a way to stop the supernova from happening, somehow. Punch it. These were the emotions and thoughts going through my head as I'm running through the ending. It wasn't about all the loops you ran before it, though the exploration and gameplay there was still fantastic. It was about this one final run. But it all had to be driven by you. The driving factor is you're going to figure out this time loop, and figure out how to save the solar system, or even the universe. And even if the ending was bittersweet, as you figure out that no, you can't stop the supernova, or all the others that are happening as the heat death claims the universe, getting the answers for the sake of the universe and that lingering hope of solar salvation was still a driving force behind getting through the game. And that's really the point of narrative-driven games, isn't it? It's not about being a ludonarrative loop that's written well enough to avoid the dissonance that comes with it. Hell, I could nitpick about plot holes that were intentionally created for the sake of gameplay. But none of that really detracts that much from the overall narrative impact. No, it's about the time it takes to get to the finish line. Roguelikes have pacing problems because of, well, pacing. I finished Outer Wilds over a long weekend or two. I played 3 times as much hours of Hades, spread over a longer period of time. And I played hundreds of hours of other games individually, like The Binding of Isaac, or Monster Train, or RimWorld. But I'll always remember the journey and the endings from Outer Wilds, Soma, Transistor, the BioShock games, System Shock 2, and many others I've only played tens of hours each, because they had much more of an emotional impact. This is the trap of measuring a game's worth by its gameplay length. Its impact by how many streamers are playing it, by how many can make a career into speedrunning it. That's not to say that these kind of clutch moments aren't enjoyable or fun to watch, but it's a different kind of experience. Trying to stretch a narrative into hundreds of hours of gameplay loses much of the drive, the motivation to play because of this repetition. It's like listening to your favorite song 100 times. You have the biggest impact the first time you hear it. Developers implement grinding as a cheap time-stretching device. It's easy to say that a gameplay loop lasts many hours, because all you have to do is provide purposely designed limitations to prevent the player from going very far. But we shouldn't dismiss a game just because it only takes 5, 10, 15 hours to beat. We hold 2-hour movies in higher regard sometimes, and spend as much or more in theaters to see it one time. Many game outlets named Outer Wilds their 2019 Game of the Year, and many of those same outlets named Hades their 2020 Game of the Year. It gives me hope that these two different kinds of games are still being recognized by their merits, even if it's not possible to make a game with a both fully immersive and impactful narrative and hundreds of hours of gameplay.